Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I am your host, Marc Guberti, CEO and founder of the Content Marketing Plaza, bringing you 3 new episodes each week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. And one of the things that we sometimes hit upon is the work-life balance. Why? Because this is an area that if we are able to master it in the right way, we are able to achieve success personally and professionally. But there is a lot of confusion when it comes to work-life balance. And we actually have a guest who he helps people bust a myth that we have about balancing all the different things that we're going to do. So if you feel like you're going towards that work-life balance, or you feel like you're not sure how you can incorporate all the areas of your life and you want to, this is the episode for you. So today's guest who joins us today, he is a life skills mindset coach and speaker for youth success and empowerment at Wolf Castillo Coaching. And he is also a former professional acrobatic who's going to provide us a really great episode. So today's guest for episode 364 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Wolf Castillo. Wolf, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, how's it going, Mark? I saw that we're 1 day shy of it being 365.
Yeah, we are pretty close to that big number where you'll have to listen to an episode every day for a year. If you can do that, that's a goal now. But anyway, less about that, more about the show. I'm wondering if you can just tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you decided to go on this path of empowering others.
Sure. So the long story short, because it's a long story, but who cares? The long story short is I did really good going through school and college and everything, doing what everybody told me that I was supposed to be doing in my life. I got the good grades. I graduated magna cum laude honors degree in education and psychology, got a 3.9 GPA, paid my way through college, 0 student loan debt, working 4 jobs at the same time, paid for my first car, cash in full by myself. And I did all these things and it was seemingly good. Like everyone kind of gave me the old, thumbs up, good job. And, what they didn't know was that I was struggling severely with depression and anxiety. And that came as a result of a lot of things. It was just personal struggles and the loss of some very close people to me, and working and schooling 60 to 70 hours a week. And I found myself in a position where the simplest way to put it was there's like run out and you're just burnt out. And then there's just like, what's the point type conversation. And, I had to do a lot of work around that, and it was a long healing process. And, one day I kept in touch with one of my mentors, ultimately one of the biggest things that kind of moved me forward. But he knew that I was, I did well in school and I did all these things, and he's a clinical psychologist. And he's like, hey, look, like I have somebody that I think you should coach, because I know that you've been talking about wanting to coach and wanting to speak. And basically my first opportunity kind of jumped into my lap, and I started doing the work, started seeing results, and I realized that there is a huge gap for young people transitioning into the adult stages of their life. And I wanted to provide myself as a tool for not only them, but just people in general, especially young people who are struggling to make that transition, to empower them wherever they're at and whatever they're going through.
Wow, that's a really awesome goal. And I definitely see that, because there is this transition from like graduating college to like, oh no, what am I like going to do? And like really figuring out your identity. And I associate with this, like I'm like, as we're recording this, next semester is going to be my last. So I got my eyes, I'm thinking about graduation. I'm thinking about what's going to happen to other people who I know who are going to graduate. And, it's a very different. So I really like that you focus on empowering people. And you mentioned that you had that at some point, you had the what's the point idea. And I feel like to transform others, we have to transform ourselves. So can you talk a little bit how you were able to transform yourself to get to where you are now, able to empower others now?
Yeah, so I actually want to take and play with that word transform and play with it and turning it into transforming, because we talked about, and I think it'll kind of come full circle, but like living a balanced life versus the idea of like balancing. But in my process of transforming, because I think it's always ongoing and not like some kind of like destination, the things that ultimately propelled me in that. I mean, there's it's funny, a lot of times it's just basics, and I think that a lot of people miss out on the basics, but it was a lot of things. It was, I started picking up books around personal development, things like The One Thing was a really, really good one for me, by Gary Keller. Books like, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like all these, all the books, when you think personal development, like all those names that come through, The War of Art, not to be confused with The Art of War, all of these different books, those were a good space for me. And this was actually probably one of the bigger pieces, was adding movement and movement-based practices to my life, being an acrobat and amongst other things. One of the things that I find that, especially when we get into those dark or dangerous or even just difficult places, we stop moving and getting out of our normal day-to-day, especially if like you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur and you have all these different hats you're putting on. Like you go and you work, maybe it's 8, 10, 12, however many hours, and you come home and maybe you have a family and kids, or maybe you have another job, or whatever that is. For me, I realized that I let my circumstances keep me from doing things like get outside and to move or to exercise, or even if it's just to take a walk, a simple walk. All of those things really contributed to getting regrounded into who it was that I am, and empowering me there. Another big piece was having just an amazing support group with mentors and other coaches that I had. And ultimately, it was doing a lot of shadow work in terms of getting present to the things about me that are pulling the strings even when I'm not aware of it, meaning the subconscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche that are running at all times, even when I don't know it's going on.
And it's interesting you mentioned that movement, because one of the things that is always recommended is getting your exercise in. And for me, I like to run every single day. And any time that I take a week off, because that's just part of the game, you have to take a week or two off to avoid getting hurt. I just want to get back out there and run. So like any movement, it could just be walking. It can be just changing the routine a little bit. It can really make a big difference. And I think we're really hitting on this conversation with balance now, because a lot of people we'll just call it exercise for this example. A lot of times people can't find the time to exercise because they have X, Y, and Z. They have the business. They want to spend time with their family. So what are your thoughts on balance? Because I know you help people with that and have a different view from some of the other views out there.
Sure. So what I'm about to say, I realize could probably even be potentially triggering for some people, because this is going to be pretty in their face, but I say it from the biggest place in my heart because I've been there. And that is around that concept of, I don't have the time, or I can't possibly take the time. And what my coach got me to realize was that you don't just, time doesn't just fall out of the sky. Like we all have the same 24 hours in our day, right? It's ultimately how you're using it. It's not about, do I have the time? It's, am I making the time? Like, if, for example, you make time 10 hours, 12 hours for your business, but if you can't use this excuse of I don't have time, it's like, no, you have the time. You don't make the time. I mean, this is going to be straight between the eyes, whether it's your family, your exercise. Like, look, you don't got to go and get a gym membership and leave the house and spend, 10 minutes driving there, an hour working out, another 10 minutes driving to the next place. Like, you can just put together quick little 5, 10, 15-minute exercises. Look, YouTube people, like, YouTube is massive for this. Like, I do yoga from the comfort of my room because I watch YouTube videos. Like, I don't have to go somewhere. It's not hard. Like, at some point you realize that you're either going to have excuse for everything, or you're just going to start searching for solutions. So in that idea of balanced living, I think that balance is this, not that it's an impossible goal, but I think that is the wrong goal to have. Meaning when we have goals, it's about creating a vision of some sort, whether you're creating a long-term vision or a short-term vision. Like, my short term is I'm going to have 2 sales calls by the end of today, versus I'm going to earn 6 figures by the end of this year. Different goals, but at the end of the day, it's a guiding light. And if your guiding light is I want to have this balanced living, then the actions that we take are going to inform whether or not we're moving in the direction of that balanced living. So for example, if all of my actions are moving towards this balanced living, and I can't seem to get that balanced life, there becomes a cognitive dissonance, meaning what I want to happen and what's happening isn't aligning. And then you might, as it happens, like a teeter-totter, you might hit balance for a second, you're like, yeah, and then you go to the other side. And as opposed to getting attached to wanting to be in the middle, which creates more frustration, creates more dissonance, I think it's learning how to not achieve balance, because if you think about it, balanced insinuates a destination. I think you look at balancing, or as I like to talk about it, is being counterbalancing. So when we're on a teeter-totter, it's about being able to ebb and flow. It's about being able to, to pull time from, sometimes you got to pull time from work. You have to say, you know what, instead of Saturday going and golfing with the guys, I'm going to take the time to sit down with my family, to look my son in the eyes and tell him I love him, and to, throw the ball with him or whatever it is. Like, it's about taking and reallocating. And I think that as a society and as entrepreneurs, we need to stop making excuses as to why not and start making excuses as to why we can.
Mm. Yeah, that's some really great insights, because I don't have the time. That's a really common thing people hear, but making the time, some people, they have a really tight schedule, but I feel like for all of us, there are pockets of time. The only way you can really figure out for you is to track your time. Now, I don't track my time every single day, but if you do the exercise for just a week and you track everything from I'm working to I'm with my family to I'm on Facebook surfing, doing none of those things, you will have a big realization just by tracking different things. And what you track tends to grow. So definitely something to keep in mind. Another thing I want to talk about is the integrated lifestyle. I know you help a lot of people with this when you're empowering them. So I'm wondering if you could talk about what exactly is this integrated lifestyle and why it is so important for us to do.
Sure. And it's interesting because this actually works really well into the previous conversation about having a balanced living, right? So the way that I like to relate to it is we're juggling. We have a bunch of juggling balls, and each ball represents a different aspect of our life. So for some of us, you can play along if you're listening. Think about, what are the balls that I'm juggling? And, don't go too micro, think more macro, like, okay, relationships, which could include like family and perhaps spouse or friends and things like that. So we have that. Maybe it's our health and wellness and well-being. Maybe it's our spirituality. Maybe it's our finances. Maybe it's our business. And I separate those for a couple of reasons. Your business goals aren't always directly in alignment with your financial goals. Like, they influence one another for sure, but like, I might have a business goal of, let's increase our reach by 1 million versus, let me, make another extra 10K or whatever. But distinguish what the different balls that we are juggling and what this integrated lifestyle looks like for me is, once I know what balls I'm juggling, because if you don't know what you're juggling, then it's very difficult to have integration. It's learning about how to create this beautiful coercion, like this musical symphony. You have the drums, you have the saxophone, you have the conductor. It's about taking all these pieces and have it turn into this harmonious coercion where, we say, okay, I'm committed to having my business thrive, and I'm committed to having my relationship with my spouse work, and I'm committed to my health. So integration might look at, okay, well, how do I have all of them win? And it's a fluid game. Sometimes you say, you know what, I don't have an hour and a half to work out today, but I'll commit to 10 minutes. Right. I maybe I don't have 3 hours to go out with the missus or the mister tonight, but what I can do is, we can just, heat up something real quick and just like sit down and just look into each other's eyes and just appreciate the time that we have. Or maybe it is saying, you know what, like I spent a lot of time on my business, and yes, I want to continue growing, but the thing that I think that we lost is believing that business or work is going to take care of everything else, versus seeing it as seeing as one way versus seeing as two way. Like, if we're going to break it down to business, movement, and life, like personal life, if any one of those is off, it's going to impact the other one. So if my familial life and that aspect is really failing, you better believe I'm going to be at work more than likely, at least subconsciously, having that festering in the background. Yeah. And vice versa. If business isn't, it'll affect that. So it's really about playing and time blocking and making the important things in our lives a priority, and then looking at those balls. And as difficult as this is a really important exercise, is determining what's most important to me. Like, if you got 6 balls you're juggling, going through them and saying, if I could have one or the other, which one is it? You know, do I value my health over, and this was a tough one, but like the real answer for me was like my health versus like my relationships. I actually ended up choosing my health, because I said that if I'm stupid unhealthy, like to the point where I can't walk or I'm depressed or I'm anxious, I can't possibly be happy or give my full to being in a relationship with my lover, the person that I love. So, it's getting present to those and then just working on how that can all work harmoniously.
Wow, and it's interesting how you have all these, like you're thinking about how these big areas of your life really affect each other. And if you're suffering in one of those areas, then it is definitely going to affect you in other areas. One thing I do want to touch on, though, is you said about exercising for an hour and a half. You don't have time for that. At least I exercise for 10 minutes. Some people, they'll think like, why would I even bother? Now, like, we'll just apply, like, it's not just exercise. It could be, like for me, sometimes I'll throw myself in as an example. If I want to create like 8 videos in one day, like and I'm like at the end of the day,
Yep.
like, is it really worth it to get all the setup just for one video? And now I know like the counter could be, and I just happened to think about this recently, so I could just shoot it on my phone and be fine. But for people who think that they're not getting the full, whether it's a workout or the full time shooting videos or the full time, and they don't feel like it's really doing them that good to just do that equivalent of the 10-minute workout, what would you say to that person?
I just think it's misguided, because I think that it comes back to an attachment. The belief, right? So if, information comes in based off the information, how we perceive it, whether we perceive it as good, bad, whether we perceive it as right, wrong, like information comes in and we have we perceive it some way. And based off of how we perceive it, we form a belief. If my ongoing belief is that, oh, well, the only way that I can, improve my health is to work out an hour and a half. Here's what I'm going to say. That is what that person is probably using as an excuse to not work out. Like, let's just be frank. Like we're now using our quote, I don't have time, to not take care of our own health, versus saying, you know what? I got 10 minutes. I'm about to crank this out. I'm going to, like whether it's like HIIT training or something like that, where it's just, you go really, really hard for 10-minute intervals. Because here's the thing, 10 minutes compounded over a month for 5 days out of the week, 5 times 4 is 20, 20 times the 10. That's a lot more than 0, because you quote, don't have the time.
Right. And that compound is a really great example. And I mean, 10 minutes a day, it may not feel like a full workout. Like for me, like running just for 10 minutes in one day, like wouldn't be as much, because I'm used to running an hour, sometimes 2 hours in a given day.
Sure.
But if you compound that, week by week, it really adds up on time where you normally wouldn't be running, or on time where you normally wouldn't be working on getting more clients. Because I mean, just sending out 10 emails each day, that has such an insane compound effect, and outreach is definitely one of the best things you could do for your business. Now shifting more to empowerment, because I know you help people with that. Based on this episode, you've also been helping out a bunch of the listeners as well. So I'm wondering if you could share with us, what do you believe holds most people back from being able to accomplish their big goals?
Themselves. I mean, it's themselves, and it's the beliefs. And I'm saying this from recognition. I'm saying this because I know that the thing that's in my way is me. What's stopping me from making that sales call? Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's a fear of rejection, or a wanting to get it right, or whatever it is. I think that it really comes down to us as human beings and being at cause for our life, because it's really, really easy. In terms of like, oh, like how's this empowerment? It's like, well, here's the thing. Before you can get empowered, you got to get really present to what's hindering you from, like life, thinking of it like a slingshot, right? Like if you really want to shoot forward, you got to pull really far back sometimes. And you got to pull. Because if you pull a little bit, you sling it. Okay, well, you might get a couple inches, but sometimes you just got to really pull, and it's pulling, it's hurting. And it's like, what is this all about? And then you let go, and you finally release, and it just goes flying. And I heard this parable yesterday, and do my best to not butcher it, but it was talking about the burden of a donkey. And the story, as I understood it, was there's a donkey, and it's in this place where it's hungry and it's thirsty, and it's sitting right in the middle of hay and water. And it's stuck, because it doesn't know, like, oh, well, should I get this or should I get that? If I get that, well, then I won't have this. And it creates, again, like this dissonance of which one do I do? And ultimately the donkey dies of starvation. And the message inside of that is, I think that a lot of times we try to do this, the belief is I need to do this like sequentially, like linear, versus seeing it as, look, I just need to make a decision and course correct. Because like what you just said, that 10 emails of outreach compounded is way more than 0 because you didn't have the time to do 200 emails. Quote, didn't have time.
Yeah, quote.
Quote, don't have the time. Probably one of the biggest excuses why we don't do things. Don't have the time, don't have the money. So I think that, I strongly believe that if we get really present to the fact that the only thing that's in the way is us, and actually having that mind shift from, look, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's easy to say that, but then there's the reality of, well, what about if somebody does turn down the sale, or if some deal that was going really well just gets cut off, it's like, all right, great, it's time to course correct. It's time to reevaluate and to get realigned with our goals, and then set up new actions, and then continue to let the next steps inform what's coming next. And ultimately, I think sometimes like the highest forms of empowerment come from states of being disempowered first, and being able to be okay with and come to terms with where we're at is temporary if we choose it to be, and we're just realize that and constantly take actions towards that. Empowerment becomes this function of living. And vitality, as I've heard, like vitality is a function of participation. So let's just participate to the best that we can.
Wow, really awesome stuff. A lot of stuff in that answer. I mean, the indecisiveness of that donkey in the story. I mean, I feel like that's a story where, like, the more podcasts you listen to, whether it's Breakthrough Success or like some other podcast or radio show of a similar nature, then, like, I mean, those are the kinds of stories that really teach powerful lessons. I mean, if you got to be decisive in order to achieve your goals, because if you're I feel like if we got a choice between like food and water, like we're going to make those kinds of decisions. Like we're going to like have both of them or something like that, like in most, like a lot of scenarios. But if it comes to like, do I want to pursue this goal or that goal? That's where the paralysis can happen. So you just got to really choose one of those goals. And sometimes you do really have to pull back and look deeper in yourself in order to make that big push forward. So really awesome stuff from Wolf. I'm wondering also, in addition to, like, you went really deep into like what's really holding us back. But can you share with us now some of your habits that you would say have really contributed to your success?
A massively empowering morning routine. Because, I think that a lot of times we have this, and this is conditioned. It's interesting. It's very Pavlovian. We get up, we check our phones, we check our emails, we check our social media, we do all these things. And subconsciously, a lot of times we do it because, whether we know it or not, doing that actually gets us a little hit of dopamine. So it feels good.
Yeah.
But, we create this unconscious connection, and it actually ends up scattering our brain. So for me, I have a stupid empowering morning. I mean, I make it my mission. I know not everybody can do this, but like I try to hit all of the things that I want to have done for my own personal life within the first couple of hours of my day. And it's very regimented. Like I'm a huge lover and believer in cold showers. It's my equivalent of coffee. People are like, I can't get out of start my day until whatever. When we wake up, we have like sleep inertia. So like sometimes we feel tired. Cold shower resets your system, reduces inflammation. It's truly phenomenal what it does for the anatomy of our body. All the research and science behind it, how amazing it is. I highly, highly recommend cold showers. I generally speaking will exercise, even if it's just for 5, 10, or 15 minutes. I do yoga, which is just great for keeping me limber, especially with, we said desk a lot, like create a lot of improper functional patterns in the body. So that helps to reset. Journaling, gratitude, setting intentions, what I want to get out of my day, a little bit of reading at least. And that's like one of the main things. It's having my morning be right and having my nights be right before bed. I also have a routine because at least I start my day right, and the end of my day prepares me to have the rest of my next morning right, so that the time in between it kind of comes together really well. As simple as that sounds, I think that's truly powerful. That, and get you some mentors or coaches that are going to keep pulling you up. Don't ever be the smartest person in the room.
Wow, Wolf, really great habits there. I like how you do it the morning, like you're not on your phone, like looking at social media right away, because I feel like that is something a lot of people definitely do. So really great habit there. And for people who want to learn more about you and follow you on your journey, I know we talked a little bit about this beforehand. I think you have one of the best ways of promoting yourself at the end of a podcast episode, but just let us know where we can find you and just learn more about you.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before. It's kind of funny because I used to tell people like, oh yeah, go find me on Facebook at this name, and then go find me on Instagram at this, because they're slightly different because some other people had the names. So you can connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, my website, and all of that is actually done through one convenient link that I believe is going to be in the show notes. I would tell the person what it is, but it's actually really weird, and they're probably not going to be able to write it down if they're listening in the car. But if you are wanting to get that, there's one single link, probably in the show notes, I believe.
Yes, definitely.
That will take you to any of those different ways to connect with me. And yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody who's heard anything that's resonant and make that connection.
And the show notes link is markguberti.com/E364. That's where you'll put Wolf's link and the rest of the show notes. Wolf, thank you so much for taking the time to come on Breakthrough Success. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Mark, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're a phenomenal interview. And everybody listening, please continue to stay tuned to what he's doing. It's absolutely amazing.